Regimental HQ as well. Within these few hours, the American breakthrough has made damned good progress. Now, halfway up the mountain, we can at last see the American infantry units. Well, you fellows, we've been waiting for you for hours. In no time, the order to open fire is given to the howitzer platoon. Shortly afterwards, the shooting begins, and after a few corrections, we begin to score direct hits on the Yankees, exactly where we wanted. I lift Doppelstein on my shoulder in sheer joy. Suddenly, life on this mountain is fun again as we make the Yankees scatter. How our infantry will celebrate, especially those involved in the rearguard action. It's only a shot in the arm from the rascally artillery, but it brings some relief, especially if we can make every shot count. More groups are working their way to the road. Rapid rate of fire. My poor gunners have had long enough to rest. Their aim is excellent, and the rangefinder operator is already preparing for new targets. 11 a.m. Whole columns of infantry appear on the railway line, heading towards us. It's to be hoped that the Americans don't get too far forward, or they'll be able to attack the lads on the flank. To the left and right of the tracks there's marshland, so no alternative route is available to the retreating Germans. Apparently the Americans haven't spotted them yet, though, since they aren't directing any artillery fire at the tracks. Meanwhile, the Americans have advanced to the road, and our own infantry has reached the protecting bridge in numbers. Now to send over our heavy stuff. Those fellows really do offer a tempting target. Our 6-barreled mortars, which have found the correct range, open up. The shells land right in the middle of the Yankees. The whole area, including our old command post, is now coming under fire from the guns. Our infantry exploits the situation at once and works its way forward at great speed. It's a miracle that the Americans didn't direct their artillery fire at the road and the railway. The entire battalion staff has now joined us up here. The commander and Oberleutnant Ulmer enjoy the spectacle of this less than glorious retreat by our regimental commander. Like us, they're also fascinated by the spectacle of the invasion fleet. Things have quietened down now, so I decide to take the chance of visiting the wounded men in my howitzer platoon. My car gets me there in no time, but the men have already been moved. At the station I come across Lieutenant Petschke, the adjutant of 1st Battalion. However, he isn't sure what's going on either, and knows only that his mob is being almost completely wiped out. The retreating units of 2nd Battalion Mill passed in long rows, exhausted and staring. The plan was for them to relieve both battalions, but they had to yield to superior numbers, and were lucky not to have been cut off themselves. In the west, the countryside is completely flooded, and it's very boggy in the east as well. The Americans are in the north, and from the south there's only one road leading to us. Since Hauptmann Mager has managed to break through to us with his battalion, there's no need for Lieutenant Degenkolber to bring them across in shuttle traffic by pneumatic boats. That would have been a really dangerous business. However, all the vehicles and heavy guns have been lost during the march. Now my company is the only one equipped with heavy weapons. When I return, I meet Lieutenant Schroeder at the church. He's managed to break through to us with a few men from his group. Absolutely exhausted, but still very glad to have made it. The men are sitting down and enjoying their first cigarettes. They've lost some of their uniforms, and they couldn't get most of their weapons over the marsh. We hurry to fetch new gear so that all of them will be fully equipped. Every man is going to be precious in the hours to come, because our losses have certainly been extremely high. According to earlier estimates, the company has lost about 5 dead and 20 wounded. But not all units were engaged in the fighting, that is, the others had been deployed to less dangerous positions beforehand. The inspectors and Hauptfeldwebels are gathering together, and our lorries are kept busy fetching supplies from the town. We can't afford to worry about the inhabitants just now. We'll get no supplies of our own, so we have to help ourselves. I want to see to the supply train myself. I'm out of cigarettes too. At the old battalion command post, I find the regimental and battalion staff. The regimental commander has arrived with his batmen, dripping wet. Even at this stage, the old fox has managed to trick the enemy. To prevent the enemy fighter bombers, who were shooting at everything under the sun, from recognizing our soldiers, he ordered them to remove their helmets and use them to wave to the aircraft. Up to their knees or bellies in water, they weren't easy to recognize as German soldiers. Oh yes, our regimental commander von der Heiter, he can be a real fox still. He's borrowed some gear whilst discussing further measures with the commanders and eating some chicken. Already he's back in an excellent temper. The regiment is to try to hold the line at the edge of Carentan until the replacements which have been called for get through. In addition, we are to hold Saint-Côme-du-Mont, also at all costs. Regimental HQ will remain here whilst an advance command post is set up at the signal box west of Saint-Côme. We are to transfer back to Hill 30 with my old machine gun and mortar platoons, or what's left of them. At the train, stragglers are gathering and waiting to be re-equipped. During ablutions, I send orders to my sergeant major. He's to get together a horse-drawn vehicle with clothing and have it ready to pull out. Warm rations to be taken to Hill 30. The entire equipment of the company to be loaded into other such carts still be to be commandeered, so that we'll be able to move quickly even without motor vehicles. The good Sarge is stunned at the host of orders, but it can't be helped. Besides, more supplies have to be organised. Thus, excellently refreshed, we travelled back undisturbed. We'll see what else this day has in store for us. The latest reports say that smaller groups of Americans have been sighted at Cap de Boer, probably part of the remaining airborne landing forces. We can also expect armoured spearheads to attack from the direction of Gragne, as these have crossed the Vire Canal in the upper section and are trying to approach Carentan from the south. A race against time begins. The way to Perrier will be open to the side, which manages to collect its forces to take the defile between the plain and the main highway. The Americans know that as well as we do. Consequently, we're desperately trying to hold Carentan at all costs until our reinforcements get here. On the orders of the regimental commander, Oberleutnant von Bethusi takes over command with immediate effect. Command post of the 12 and 6 is established on the northern edge of Hill 30. Messengers are sent to inform the platoons, which quickly gather on the northern edge and are deployed by Oberfeldwebel Peters according to my instructions. The bulk of the machine gun platoons are covering the north in such a way that they can also protect Carentan in the centre and also direct fire westwards. Lieutenant Klein's anti-aircraft platoon, previously assigned to the protection of the town, has also been placed under my command. The platoon consists of 6 2-centimetre anti-aircraft guns, but not on mobile gun carriages. With their speed and effectiveness, they'll be a great help to us. 2 guns are set up on the hill, 2 in the valley, the others to protect the hill. 3 mortars, 3 12, 5-centimetre and 3 8-centimetre guns are also put into position on the hill to the rear of the machine gun platoons. The command post and observation post are also directly on the hill, but the telephone central is in its old position. It takes a massive effort to prepare the new positions for the men and the guns and to establish our observation areas. Since we've acquired an all too intimate knowledge of the enemy artillery fire, the men are happy to dig their holes. Soon, maybe in the next few hours, we'll have a lot of it to bear. Late in the night, the telephone network was also completed, and the important communications ensured. Helbig arrives with a horse-drawn wagon and brings the warm food and excellent coffee we've all been yearning for. To general satisfaction, it begins to rain gently. The fighting subsides and gives us time to reorganize. The Americans seem to need it too, otherwise they'd certainly have pressed us harder. Enemy artillery fire flares up here and there, but only briefly. Our troops have occupied the edge of the town in front of the marshland and have managed to reorganize themselves. Il Battalion now has to bear the main burden of battle. A battalion of Russians who have pushed down to us from the northwest from the coast has already been sent to the front. I've put the heavy weapons, 12 machine guns, 5 5-centimetre mortars and 3 5-centimetre anti-tank guns, as far forward as possible. Slowly, the front has been stabilised. The men climb tiredly into their holes and fall asleep at once. But for the various commanders, there is no time for sleep yet. For some time, they are busy compiling casualty lists, counting and receiving ammunition, and especially working out the basic firing distances. After that, even we are allowed to rest a little. It's now 2 a.m. the 9th of June. How long have we been asleep? I feel incredibly refreshed, but it was only 6 hours. It's a beautiful day, and quiet. The sun is golden, the sky is cloudless, there are no sounds of enemy gunfire. It's as though it was peacetime. The night was so quiet that we weren't even woken once. The sentries report a few white signal flares here and there, but nothing else. The day passes quietly as well. Some reconnaissance patrol activity is reported from both sides, and some firing by the enemy's heavy weapons. Another battery has been assigned to us, 10.5 howitzers, but they have so little ammunition that they can only be used in a real emergency. We continue to organize ourselves and to drag whatever we can from Carentan. Butter, cheese, real coffee, wine, champagne, socks and shirts, all coveted and needed. The men continue to strengthen the positions, clean their guns and themselves. Ammunition belts are reloaded. 11 a.m. About 20 Americans can be seen by the old via bridges, helping to build footbridges, and there is also considerable activity by supply trucks. Just what our mortars and machine guns have been waiting for. I gladly give permission to open fire, and soon 2 enemy trucks are in flames. Peters and Domke are the happy marksmen. An enemy assault gun is moved calmly into position by the church of St. Comdumont, but is removed very quickly after it comes under fire from our positions. The day passes slowly, with no sign of the attack we had expected from the Americans. Will we get another night of rest? We're also awaiting reinforcements in the form of the outstanding SS Division Gotz von Berlichingen. If this is thrown into the battle, with its tanks and guns, its superb equipment and fresh reserves of men, then it might alter the entire situation. But nothing is stirring, and my bad experiences with replacements have made me very pessimistic. 5 p.m. with Oberleutnant Nade, a plan of action and even astonishingly, a plan of fire are worked out. The regiment is reckoning on the Americans crossing the marsh and the river under cover of night. 3 barrage fire zones are worked out. 2 on the bridges, which we so generously allowed to fall intact into the enemy's hands without blowing them up, and the other on the western exit of Carentan. As night is already falling, we have to calculate these zones mathematically. 9 p.m. On the orders of the regiment, all the heavy weapons are to aim harassing fire at the 2 bridges throughout the night. My machine guns won't reach that far, but apart from them, I'm happy to oblige. I've no more worries about ammunition now that I've got the entire reserves of the regiment's lost heavy weapons at my disposal. The 10th of June, 12:30 a.m. My heavy guns begin their harassing fire on barrage fire zone Bertha. But there's nothing to be seen except for the flash of the hits. We can't tell if they're on target. On information received from the infantry, we advance fire by another 200 meters. My gun lets fly too. The light infantry companies report back to say that the aim is excellent. After I've given further details of the range, I turn in. The rain is pattering gently on the canvas of my tent, and soon I'm sunk in a dreamless sleep. That old soldier's ability to drop off wherever you are, and in whatever circumstances, has returned after a couple of days in action. 1 a.m. The telephone rings again to say that on battalion orders I'm to return to my observation tree, although I had already reported that nothing was happening. I reckon that the staff has been drinking and has nothing better to do than to deprive its company commanders of their sleep. Why am I providing harassing fire with my big gun and not with the machine guns? Crazy question from the old man. Because machine gun fire is completely ineffective, as I've already told Oberleutnant Nadsee, and because the battalion has ordered me to provide harassing fire with all the guns I can. As a result of telling the truth, I get a dreadful dressing down. God, and now this unfortunate gun is firing again, despite the order I've just given to cease fire. Ring. Now there's chaos. The old man is back on the line, even more furious with me than before. Now the word is that my mortars are firing too short, but that's not possible, since the firing data has been precisely calculated and checked. As I've been firing for 2 hours, and accurately at that, then I can't suddenly be firing too short using the same calculations. It's enough to make you puke. The old man has suddenly gone crazy. 2:10 a.m. 3 red very lights over barrage firing zone Bertha. That's the agreed signal of an enemy attack, so I respond with all the guns I have that can reach. My guns find the range very quickly. Equally quickly, the old man is on the telephone again. Why am I firing with my big heavy gun again, after he expressly ordered me not to? because a curtain barrage is the warning sign to the infantry that the enemy is making a major attack, and such a barrage, in general, is only fired when there is danger. But in such a case, all heavy guns are to fire, and it's not entirely clear to me why my gun should be the only one to remain silent. But the regimental commander is always right, or at least he thinks he is, and I'm removed from my company immediately. His protégé Nade, who is actually a fine fellow, is to take over. It's easy to imagine my bitterness. My platoon leaders, who have gone through the whole business with me, are furious as well, but there's nothing to be done. The scum up there always stick together. The adjutant naturally sticks by his commander and won't accept the responsibility for his order. When I report to him on his orders, it is now 4 a.m. and he's already asleep. Consequently, I don't get the chance to clear my name straight away. As my master has gone to bed, why shouldn't his servant? After informing both lieutenants where I would be, I turn in and sleep deep into the morning, undisturbed in a soft bed. Unfortunately, I get a bitter awakening, since the commander has scarcely laid eyes on me before he starts shouting and demanding to know where I've been hiding. I can prove my case through the two lieutenants, since I'd informed them where I'd be. However, one of them wasn't there, and the other one simply denied it. That was Lieutenant Munt, the liar. Thank heaven this storm subsides when I'm able to prove beyond doubt that I'm telling the truth. But the upshot of the whole business is that I, a veteran soldier, am now stuck here with the commander as number 6 officer courier. During the morning, a small number of enemy assault parties manage to reach the bank, but are driven back by our troops. So far the front is holding firm, but it can't be held indefinitely since we have so few heavy weapons. Moreover, we have no real confidence in the infantry we've picked up and the Russian soldiers assigned to us. Everything that's crawling around in the area is collected indiscriminately into battle groups, mainly under the command of Hauptmann Becker, a holder of the German Cross in gold. That afternoon, the whole sector remains quiet. Only in the evening hours does the infantry report intensified artillery fire, increasing slowly but steadily. At 6 p.m. there follows the first major attack on our left flank at Pomenork. The first assault fails, amid heavy enemy casualties. 10 and 11 companies are in the thick of the fighting. In both of them, clear signs of demoralization are beginning to appear. Several factors are having their effect. The retreat, the overwhelming superiority of the enemy artillery, and especially the loss of the best leaders. Oberleutnant Wagner was killed on the 7th of June by a direct hit from the artillery, whilst Oberleutnant Privé died of wounds on the same day at St. C6 Medumont. At 10 p.m., the Americans make a major penetration of our system at Pomenork. An immediate counterattack led by Oberleutnant Mark fails to break through and collapses bloodily. Our excellent battalion doctor, Dr. Schad, yet again has his hands full, and our medical personnel perform their usual quiet but selfless duty. Now the Americans are pouring over the marsh road to the northern edge of Carentan. The commander of the SS Panzer Division, Gotz von Berlichingen, arrived a short time ago, and he is keen to offer encouragement to our troops in the front line. Yet despite his promise that his tanks will be there in a short time, even he can't save the situation. The men brace themselves one more time, advance again, but are always driven back. Backed by their powerful artillery, the Americans continue to advance, and fog makes any accurate assessment of the situation increasingly difficult. At 10 p.m., the regimental commander is forced to give up the position at Carentan. The troops leave their positions and withdraw, in what is more of a flight than an orderly retreat. To our great good fortune, this happens without the Americans realizing what's happening and pressing after us. Even Hill 30, so crucial to our defense and with Oberleutnant Nade now in control, can no longer be held. If we were in Carentan itself, something might still have been done, but we've been forced into the hedgerows and no longer have the marsh ahead of us to protect us. We'd certainly be extremely vulnerable to an attack. The new line, reconnoitre some hours ago, lies along the line Saint-Georges-de-Beaujon, Saint-Denis, La Moisonnerie, Bléhoux. The line is occupied at 11 p.m. without any enemy pressure, and the commanders immediately make minor alterations to the positions. During the night, rough and ready protections are erected against artillery bombardment. The arrival of the SS regimental commander has made all of us more confident. At dawn, by the latest, the advance parties of the division will be arriving. So the night passes quietly, with hardly any shooting at all. The 11th of June. In the first hours of the morning, I travel by motorcycle, on the orders of the regimental commander, to the corps staff at St. Lo. My instructions: 1. Situation report. 2. Request of the regiment to be placed under the command of the SS Panzer Division, as no orders at all are coming in from 91 Infantry Division, and the SS Division is nearest to us. 3. Provision of supply. The weather is grey and cloudy as I roar off on my motorcycle, so at least we'll be less harassed by enemy aircraft. I reach St. Lo without incident. After some delay, we locate the corps staff in an old seminary, a big, strong building. Life here is lived almost entirely underground. TEV staff is accommodated in a very deep, complex bunker built by the Army engineers. There are at least 20 steps down into it, and light is provided by an underground power source. Soon I'm standing in front of the senior staff officer. To my pleasure, the colonel tells me that the regiment has been mentioned in the Wehrmacht report and sends his congratulations to our regimental commander. He says that the whole corps is extremely impressed by the performance of the regiment. They haven't understood how badly we were led. General Marx is pleased as well, and also agrees to our various requests. Everything is settled to our benefit. I'm also able to pinch a stack of maps, so vital for us. Having accomplished my mission, I roar back to base. Shot up and burned out vehicles are littering the road like mileposts. Burned trucks, shot to pieces by fighter bombers, are everywhere. There are hardly any other vehicles moving on the roads. We reach our command post at Blehu without incident. Meanwhile, the 1st Battalion of the SS Division has arrived, and its officers are attending a situation discussion with the commander. All first-class fellows, a superb officer corps like ours used to be in the early years. The divisional commander, a holder of the Knight's Cross, makes a particularly good impression. All his officers are devoted to him. The battalion commanders are excellent too, and include 2 more holders of the Knight's Cross. The artillery commander, a schoolmaster in peacetime, is a likeable old fellow who wins us all over at once. The battalion is moved into the line immediately. Most important, it is to hold the dangerous right sector, which stretches over the main Carentan-Perrier road as far as the runway. In the early morning, the forward observation officers of the SS artillery rush ahead to work out their firing data. In the evening, there's another discussion here concerning our planned counterattack on Carentan. Officers pore over tables and maps, making enthusiastic calculations. Warning orders to resupply with ammunition have already been sent out to all units. At 10 p.m. the following warning order is issued. 1. The Gotz von Berlichingen Division, supported by 6th Parachute Regiment, to attack Carentan in the counterattack on the 12th of June 1944. 2. Start of attack at X hour. 3. Boundary for the attacking battalions. Main Carentan-Perrier's Road, A, 12 and 6, which already knows the terrain, with 2 SS platoons to strengthen the right side of the main road. B, SS Regiment 37 on the left. C, left support 11. Regiment 6 under the command of Hauptmann Marger. 4. Objective of the SS Battalion, to break through to the northern edge of Carentan. Objective of the 3rd. 6. A controlled advance up to the railway line with the right flank in touch with the SS. 5. Attack to be supported by SS Artillery Regiment Gotz von Berlichingen and 2 SS assault gun batteries. 6. In the event of good progress, the division intends to break through to Saint-Côme-du-Mont and to establish a bridgehead there. Signed, Ossendorf, SS Divisional Commander. This order is received with immense pleasure by the troops. They reckon that we'll be advancing again now, back to Carentan, scene of so much earlier fighting. My men are particularly happy to be going back to Hill 30. Many of our dead comrades lie there, left unburied, as well as our weapons, and especially our 2-centimetre guns. Perhaps we'll even manage to get them back intact by making a surprise attack, they think. On the other hand, US old men at headquarters are rather less optimistic. Hauptmann Peiser, like me, thinks the situation is far from rosy, since we have so few men to deploy. We don't even dare think about a breakthrough to Saint-Côme-du-Mont. Against the enemy, we haven't been given adequate forces. It's incomprehensible to us why an entire SS regiment hasn't been deployed instead of one miserable battalion. It's doubtful whether adequate support will be provided from the heavy weapons, because the artillery commander himself has expressed reservations about whether he'll have received adequate supplies of ammunition in time. The whole thing seems to be a highly doubtful business, and it seems very unlikely that we'll be able to force home our attack. The SS think they can do it easily. They've arrived with enormous idealism, but they'll get the surprise of their lives against this enemy, which is not short of skill itself. The 12th of June, 5 a.m. The night has passed peacefully with only the usual light signals to disturb us. Now we're waiting for our artillery to begin the preparation. Everywhere there's an atmosphere of feverish excitement and expectancy. Will our troops manage to drive the enemy back? Our artillery fire begins tentatively, but gradually increases in intensity. However, the enemy isn't asleep either, and is shelling our positions with harassing fire. The noise of battle is useful for our advancing assault guns, providing noise camouflage. On the roads and access routes, in the meadows and fields, SS men and paratroopers are waiting for the order to advance. The minefield lanes have already been cleared secretly during the night. X hour has been set for 6 a.m. Now the time has come. The artillery has been keeping up a heavy barrage for 15 minutes. The assault guns have been moved forward to the furthest point where the hedgerows offer cover. At the stroke of 6 a.m., our artillery fire creates a fire screen above the positions to be attacked. Simultaneously, the tanks advance, accompanied by the infantry. The enemy line has already been reached, with hardly any shots being fired from there. My men are fairly well acquainted with the terrain and move towards the old line. Widely spaced and in echelon, they advance from hedge to hedge. As they approach their objective, they come under semi-automatic fire. A sniper in a tree, a burly lance corporal, a Bavarian or Tyrolean with a neat moustache, brings 2 men down from the trees single-handedly, but is then hit and killed. 2 others are wounded. This much we can see from the observation post. Then we gather round the radio equipment to hear the incoming reports and get the details of the situation. 7:30 a.m. Report from SS Battalion 37. Advancing steadily despite very stiff enemy resistance. Americans moving to the north. Enemy groups still situated between our spearheads. Own casualties moderately high. 9 a.m. Report from the left flank. Have reached outskirts of Carentan. Strong enemy groups still in rear. Request artillery fire on Carcantan since noise of tanks detectable there. 9:15 a.m. Report from the right flank. Unable to prevail against strong resistance without tanks. Approximately 500 meters territory gained by 9 a.m. 9:50 a.m. Report from SS Battalion 37. Attack at a standstill in front of Carentan. Enemy attacking from Carcantan with tanks. 10:45 a.m. Forced to withdraw under massive enemy pressure. Then everything happens with lightning speed. The commander of the SS troops has realized that only our own position can now be held, and orders a rapid withdrawal to the initial position. The troops are pouring back, but can still be intercepted and made to reinforce the line of defense. Then the Americans rush forward, but at least they've given us enough time to gather. They must surely have reckoned it was a trick and not had sufficient confidence to advance so fast. Otherwise things would have been damned difficult for us. So the counterattack has failed, just as we had thought it must. No breakthrough to Saint-Côme-du-Mont. Our casualties are very high, particularly in the SS battalion and on our left flank. My company has also suffered considerably. Its estimate, yet to be confirmed, is of the following losses. Killed, 3 Feldwebel, 2 Oberjäger, 5 men wounded, 3 Oberjäger, 23 men missing, 1 Oberjäger, 5 men. Yet again, it's generally the best men who have been lost. Especially tragic is the loss of our 2 machine gun Unteroffizier, Domke and Runge, the best in the company, and we've had to leave the badly wounded men in the hands of the enemy, since we couldn't take them with us during the retreat. Now it's all quiet on the battlefield. Here and there, people are working to restore order. The lorries are moving ceaselessly to evacuate the wounded. Ammunition is being replaced, and most important of all, the units are being reorganized. The 3 SS Battalion 37 has to be brought in because 1st Battalion's casualties are simply too high. Our units, which were fighting on the right flank, return to us, and our battalion thus takes over a sector again. The companies are deployed as follows. On the right, 12 Company Rifle Platoon under Lieutenant Schroeder, then 9 Company in the strength of a reinforced platoon under Feldwebel Mouth, 10 Company, a platoon under Fahnenjunker Feldwebel Hooper, 11 Company, still the strongest with 3 platoons under Oberleutnant Mark, apart from myself, the only remaining company commander in the battalion. Battalion command post by the bend in the road outside Morty. I'm returning to my company as well, since Oberleutnant Nade is being assigned elsewhere. The company now consists of a machine gun section with 2 heavy machine guns, led by Fahnenjunker Unteroffizier Binder, 1 heavy mortar section with 3 8-centimeter mortars under Feldwebel Ohm and Oberfeldwebel Wrench, 2 rifle platoons under Lieutenant Schroeder and Oberfeldwebel Wrench, a pitiful remnant of a company which was once so proud and strong. I've got so many platoon leaders that I don't know what to do with them. We're short of weapons, or else we could set up new platoons. But that's what's happened to almost all the companies, although they have it much easier than the heavy weapons companies. The commander is keeping me near him now. It's the old story. Eventually you're bound to get behind the lines with the staff. Heavy weapons can be directed most effectively from the command post, because the commander receives his reports and always has particular requests to make of the commander of the heavy weapons as a result. In the course of the afternoon, we managed the redeployment without being disturbed by the enemy. Now the men are feverishly digging earthworks. It will probably be only a matter of hours until the Americans attack. Evening comes, then the night, but nothing happens. The 13th of June. The weather has cleared up again, and the enemy air activity intensifies. No vehicle on the road is safe from the fighter bombers and lightnings. It's become virtually impossible to travel the roads by day, but we've already prepared for this. Enemy air activity is at its height in the morning, midday and evening hours, so these hours are avoided. Anti-aircraft lookouts are assigned to each vehicle so that whenever enemy aircraft approach, they can be driven into cover. But despite all these precautionary measures, the pilots are always finding new victims. This morning, as my Batman is bringing my wonderful pale grey limousine back to the train, the car is shot up on the Carentan-Perrier road. Fortunately, my Batman escapes, suffering only from shock. The day ends with the harassing fire from the enemy that we've all grown used to. No casualties. The 14th of June. Moderate artillery fire from the enemy and ourselves. I use this relatively peaceful day to check on the train. Everywhere animals are being slaughtered and seized. Naturally enough, good food raises the men's courage for the fight. The old saying is true. An army marches on its stomach. The 16th of June. The usual artillery fire. The weather has become summery and warm. The 17th of June. Since the early hours of the morning, there has been increased fire along the battalion's entire sector. Almost every company has suffered casualties. More than 5 men have been wounded in my own company. Are the Americans going to attack today? They've certainly given us enough breathing space. In the wider picture, Cherbourg Fortress is in the centre of the fighting and is being attacked by the enemy with all his forces, which has been a very great relief for us. Will it be our turn now? It almost looks that way because the artillery fire is constantly increasing, and yet the expected attack hasn't materialised. The night is wild, and we spend it on a drinking session with the SS as our guests. The situation is discussed frankly, and it becomes clear that the SS is in a position to make an objective judgment. If we haven't managed to drive the enemy back at all after 10 days fighting, how on earth are we ever going to get them out? The transportation of our SS and armoured units is taking a very long time, given the constant bombardment of the routes. Meanwhile, the enemy has had time to land more troops and equipment to consolidate his position. Although a few ships have been sunk, they are of little significance given the extent of Allied power. In these circumstances, we are not very optimistic. Almost all of us are convinced that unless we succeed in driving the enemy out within 3 weeks at most, then we will have lost the war. The theme of invasion has become the story of our lives and dominates the conversation during these evenings. The 18th of June. Nothing of significance to report. The 19th of June, the usual. The enemy artillery fire doesn't affect those men who are safely in their dugouts, but it still finds victims every day, and thus slowly but surely saps the strength of the battalion. The 20th of June. Waiting, waiting, waiting. The 21st of June. Generally, our own recce patrols are sent out under cover of darkness. The men spend hours lying in front of enemy lines, trying to find out more information, usually without success. The SS have also sent out nighttime assault parties and brought back prisoners, which are really valuable for us. But even here, our regimental commander does not stick to his own first principles of reconnaissance instruction. The 22nd of June. Excellent progress is being made on the consolidation of our positions. The individual holes are now connected by trenches to create a unified line, and well-disguised observation holes have been driven through the earth walls. The roads have already been mined, and each night our engineers are at work mining the land in front of our positions. Barbed wire, prepared by our supply men, is also being put into position. Each day that passes enables us to strengthen our position, although we still have a lot to do. From bitter experience, we know never to stop the work of consolidation and improvement, but to carry on until the last possible moment. The 23rd of June. To our delight, we've obtained a heavy gun again, the only one in the battalion. My howitzer platoon leader Doppelstein is especially pleased, and is already busy organizing and assembling the platoon. For the last few days, he has been acting as ADC with the battalion. By evening, we are ready. Tomorrow, we'll be waiting for action. Let's just see how this brand new cannon can shoot. We've also been provided with 2 8-centimeter mortars, which we immediately prepare for action. Now all we're lacking are the heavy machine guns all the men are desperate to get their hands on. The 24th of June. For 2 days, 3 men from 11 Company have been lying just in front of the enemy lines, trying to discover suitable opportunities for a nighttime combat patrol. Needless to say, they get a great deal of fun out of it. Now that the enemy has left us in peace for so long, the men have rediscovered their composure and are in good spirits. Today we discover that the neighbouring battalion had a success yesterday. A combat patrol of 12 men, which had already penetrated the enemy trenches once before, went over again last night and blew up 6 American heavy mortars without suffering any losses themselves. Much envy in our battalion, of course. In the evening, an American scout car races towards our lines along the mined road, but is captured by the battalion. It's the same type that I'm already acquainted with from Sicily, a nice little car with a .50 caliber machine gun mounted on it. However, we soon remove the gun to allow us to steer the car better, and also because of the shortage of ammunition. These days have contained some pleasant surprises, but it soon begins to get boring. The daily tour of the positions takes 2 hours, then I'm more or less unemployed for the rest of the day. For the first time since this fighting began, we get post today. Great joy, of course, for all the lucky recipients in their bunkers and foxholes. A little bit of home in this miserable existence. Like the others, today passes without any major enemy activity, except that the artillery fire is increasing all the time. In particular, all the men fear surprise mortar attacks, since you don't hear the gun being discharged and therefore don't get the chance to take cover in time. A sudden hit, which leaves some more men lying on their bellies. The 25th of June. The men from the staff array working day and night in the bunker I proposed. A hole 2.5 meters deep has already been dug in the earth, where it splits into 2 passages, both descending deeper into the earth. At night we can hear the monotonous noise of the Russians shoveling, since we have involved them in the work as well. The bunker is already very large, and in 2 or 3 days we'll all have shelter from the heavy artillery and the bombs. 8:30 a.m. We're at our morning ablutions, still undertaken with great ceremony, when a number of aircraft suddenly approach, and to our utter astonishment, they are German fighters, and 12 of them. Amazing. That's the first we've seen since this fighting began. In a wide echelon and flying very low, they roar over the trees and hedges. Then we hear the sound of the aircraft guns and machine guns, obviously directed at enemy vehicles on the road. Now at least the Yanks will know how it feels to come under fire from above. The American thunderbolts almost wiped me out today. As I was driving back from a visit to the train, the anti-aircraft lookout shouted aircraft. I just had time to slow down and turn into a side road flanked by tall poplars. In the nick of time, the aircraft roared overhead, but he couldn't discover where we were hidden and flew off. My men admitted to me that they were damned scared then, not so much by the aircraft as by my driving when I careered off the main road. But I was lucky after all, and it seems that I'm getting myself a reputation for it. That apart, nothing is happening. We drink fizz from dawn till dusk and clown around. The 26th of June. Today, the first Iron Crosses and infantry assault badges are given to the battalion, handed out at 1 p.m. The men fall in front of the regimental commander, who takes it on himself to make the first award personally. The eyes of the young soldiers light up when the Iron Cross is pinned on their chests in recognition of their courageous service. That old warhorse Feldwebel Mouth is awarded the Iron Cross First Class. He deserves it. Others of my mob get the Iron Cross Second Class, among them the excellent rangefinder operator from company headquarters, Unteroffizier Felties, and our company lout Herbert Hasencleaver, an impossible character but a good soldier. Kurt Franz, a veteran with the Iron Cross First Class like myself, comes away empty-handed. There was nothing else for us. Our underground bunker is now being shored up and improved. It's already given us good protection on a couple of occasions when the shells were raining down. We've already had to provide a new toilet because the old one came under fire too often. What on earth could we have written to a grieving mother if her son was killed whilst sitting on the bog? 10:15 p.m. The Americans make an attack by night, perhaps one platoon in strength. It is beaten off in front of 9 companies' positions. Dead bodies are left lying on the ground, but one badly injured man is brought in. It turns out to be an English paratrooper, not a Yank. This proves that it isn't just the original enemy troops who are facing us now. He dies during the night without us managing to get any important information out of him. These blokes are well trained and respond to every question with the comment "I can't tell you." The 27th of June. According to divisional reports, the situation at St. Lo is becoming increasingly critical. If this front falls back, our position here would become indefensible as well. The entire left flank would then be left completely exposed. An assault party by 11 Company is planned for tonight. To get better fire discipline, I fetch up my tried and tested mortar platoon leader, Feldwebel Ohm, from the train. He responds with commendable enthusiasm, even though he's still limping and having to use a stick. 11 p.m. It's raining softly on the leaves and branches, which is a great advantage for the business in hand, since it provides a natural sound camouflage. The final preparations have been made. The company commander reports to the commander, who's been drinking again, that all is ready. The assault party, consisting of an Oberjäger and 10 men, has already crept softly forwards and is now within reach of the combat outposts. We're just waiting for the green signal flare to tell us to fire our mortars and enable the squad to make the final push. 12:45 a.m. Green signal flare. Immediately our mortars start firing in quick succession. Everything goes off without a hitch. The assault party runs forward, reaches its objective, sends up a white signal. At that moment, our mortars start to fire further forwards and provide a sustained barrage of fire on the area of penetration. From over there, nothing. Not a shot. Nothing. I order the men to cease fire, but to remain ready for action. 2:30 a.m. Report from the leader of the assault party that these enemy positions, long observed, have been abandoned. On the order of the commander, the assault party is to remain in the enemy position with a few men and a telephone to observe events next day. The enemy has apparently recovered from the shock and is sending over a continuous barrage in revenge for our assault. But too late. We're all safely back in our dugouts. The 28th of June. Whispered reports from our eavesdroppers, but of no importance. Nothing happens. I travel to the rear in that nippy little car again to clean myself up properly. The regiment has set up a delousing station and steam bath at the advanced field dressing station, and it's available for our use. A wonderful feeling to let that hot water trickle down one's body. There is also some decent food available at the train. Coutances, which we visit briefly, has been almost completely destroyed. We clamber over the high piles of ruined buildings, looking for undamaged objects we might be able to use. Above all, we take entrenching tools with us. Our little car is loaded down when we drive back. At the front, nothing much has happened. Apart from the usual harassing fire, the enemy hasn't done anything to disturb us. The 29th of June. No events of note. The 30th of June. As the month draws to its close, the Yanks make a major attack on the left flank of 3. SS Battalion 37 in the early hours of the morning. It fails due to the resolute resistance of these young soldiers. At 4:30 a.m., a fearful artillery bombardment begins which reaches us as well. We're sure that the expected major offensive is about to take place, but in fact it proves to be no more than an operation to obtain better points of departure for the enemy. The manoeuvre fails, which does a great deal to lift the self-confidence of the men. Tonight we recall our assault party. They bring back interesting sketches and maps of the enemy trench system. These reveal that the Americans are keeping only a few men in their forward lines during the day, but are reinforcing them strongly at night. For the second time, decorations are awarded. They include close combat clasps for us old hands. As usual, the night passes with drinking and clowning until almost dawn, when the main danger has actually passed. The 1st of July. Today we hope to occupy ourselves by destroying that damned church tower in Mioti. It affords an excellent view of our positions, and it would be a miracle if it wasn't occupied by the enemy. During a sudden concentration of fire, sustained for 5 minutes by our artillery, a Bumblebee, a 10.5 self-propelled medium-field howitzer, is moved forward to an open firing position. It soon scores a direct hit on the church tower, but the thing has thick walls. 18 shots are fired at it. There are holes all over the tower and the nave, but it won't fall down. The battery commander eventually ceases fire. 5 minutes pass, then a hail of fire is directed at us, which drives us under cover in our bunker as quickly as possible. The bunker comes under enormous pressure from the weight of the hits, but all that happens is some sand trickling from the walls. The bunker stands as firm as iron. Dobbelstein is desperate to have another try at the tower tomorrow, using our big gun. Perhaps that will bring it down. We ask our recce patrol, which already knows the terrain in front of 11 Company, to take over a card to the Yanks today. I'm already working on the draft. A white card 30 or 20 centimetre, with this written on it in English in capital letters. Invitation. We cordially invite the American commander with his stall to a variety show on the 6th of July and request his presence. The variety is entitled Parisian Women. Much amusement from everyone who sees it, especially at the picture of naked French women. The patrol takes it forward under cover and fixes it to a stick. The Americans will scarcely be able to believe their eyes when they see our little joke. The 2nd of July. The placard, which was taken over during the night, is clearly visible to us. The Americans must have been able to read it with the naked eye. In the early hours of the morning, our cannon is brought forward. The firing distances are soon worked out, and the gun is ready to fire. We've moved it forward to improve our chances of success, as it's naturally more effective over shorter distances. The gun is incredibly light, so there will be no difficulty in moving it back in the event of enemy fire. The platoon leader reports that they are ready for action, and I give permission to open fire. The first shot is too high, but the very next one tears a beautiful hole in the tower. 8 shots, each better than the one before, but the monsters just won't fall. At any rate, we've made it extremely difficult for any observer to work up there. Our various observation posts report enemy activity throughout the morning. Groups of men, often small groups, are moving about over there, though not in the most vulnerable spots, only 90 meters away from us. On several occasions, Binder, my best marksman, manages to hit enemy soldiers. After that, the others are more careful. During my tour of the positions, our fellows take great care and put 5-centimetre shells in front of my nose for 200 metres to cover the fire. Every couple of metres, Oberleutnant Siebert and I have to fall flat on our faces, but I'm not angry with Siebert for crawling round me all the time. Although he's fairly scrawny, he can still ward off a few splinters, and if he enjoys protecting my valuable life, why not? He's a good fellow, but still inexperienced. It's now possible to cross almost the whole of the battalion's sector in the trenches. Despite the constant harassing fire, the men have done a thoroughly respectable job. The trenches are as high as a man and fitted with small entrances. At least a metre layer of wood and earth, whilst screens of timber and brushwood have been erected on the exposed sections. The anti-tank gun in the defile has been installed and camouflaged carefully. Over the past 14 days, the whole area has been transformed. The 3rd of July. The weather is still warm and beautiful. Most of the men are sitting in front of their dugouts to enjoy the sun. Weapons are being cleaned, gear kept in good order. A sudden concentration of fire from the enemy, but it lands behind our lines. And why not? Why shouldn't they get their share of our daily torment back there? Once again, groups are observed on the other side today, arriving with instructions. Are they meant as a relief or for an attack? In the evening, we are again visited by our old friend from the SS engineers, a Sturmführer from Upper Silesia. So there's a special wine brought out. When Hauptmann Marger arrives as well, it's clear that there has to be a celebration. The 4th of July. Midnight has passed long since, but only a few of our guests have left. The carousing goes on, although at least it's no longer quite so loud. It's about 4 a.m. when a particularly powerful concentration of fire from the enemy artillery drives us underground. A sustained barrage rolls overhead. According to the report, most of it is hitting our most advanced positions occupied by 2nd Battalion and the artillery positions. Soon almost all lines have been broken and the maintenance men have to set off on their dangerous missions. I advise the guests to return to their posts, since the fire has now lasted for over half an hour, and its intensity is increasing. Although the commander laughs incredulously, the guests leave. 5:30 a.m. 3 signal flares illuminate the sky before it is fully light. The long-awaited attack has begun. There's screening smoke over our positions. The enemy artillery fire gradually moves to the rear. That damned aircraft, the artillery observer, is working overhead, but our weapons can't reach it. Our mortars have already been deployed in the endangered sector and are hard at work. Motorcycles race to our own artillery units because the telephone lines have all been broken, of course. The Americans are lucky to have their practical equipment, their walkie-talkies. The radio operators key and encode everything at fever pitch. It's now down to each individual to see that our defense is successful. Meanwhile, my Batman prepares my old light equipment pack. Nearby, in moments snatched between all the incoming reports, people are drinking genuine strong coffee and managing to eat a few mouthfuls of food. 6:15 a.m. The first significant enemy penetration has just been reported on the boundary between our battalion and 2nd Battalion. Although 11 Company begins an immediate counterattack, it fails to recover the ground lost. I suggest to the commander that I should be allowed to make a counterattack with my reserve platoon, and I've already put on my steel helmet in order to make my way to the men. It doesn't take long to organize the platoon. After a short summary of the situation, we move forwards carefully but steadily. A mortar attack forces us to take cover for a few minutes. Then we reach an old sunken road just in front of the old main line of defense. Dead Americans are lying all around. Items of equipment are all over the ground. I set guards on all sides. Shells are landing all round us, damned close, but we manage to find effective cover between 2 bales of straw. I send a messenger back to report that I have reached a sunken road without encountering the enemy, and to request the advance of a second group from the direction of the command post. Shells fly over again. Then I send one of my men over the sunken road to give cover on the other side, bullets whipping past him as he goes. Unfortunately, he can't determine the exact location of the enemy. My Batman crosses over as well. Once again, bullets fly past him, but the fellows don't care about that. Further over the road, we can see groups of soldiers. On closer examination, they turn out to be our own side. I send one man to make contact and discover their objectives. Just when I've decided to move further forward, my Batman signs to me to be quiet from across the sunken road. Has he heard voices speaking in English? Yes, indeed, several of them, coming closer. I quickly pass on the message to my men, get my hand grenades ready, and try to creep further forwards. I hear running footsteps. Get quickly up onto my knees in time to see an American charging towards us with his gun ready to fire. I snatch up my submachine gun and shoot in one rapid movement. He collapses, falling forwards. I stand up quickly in order to get a better field of fire, but just in time to see another American through the gap. I turn like lightning and raise my submachine gun. Then we open fire on each other. I'm hit in the arm. He got me. Damn it, but at least the American has gone down as well. I let myself drop into a hole and listen. My arm hurts like hell. Outside there is increased noise of battle, especially hand grenades and machine guns. Then things gradually get quieter. I wait half an hour until the noise has stopped. What has been happening? Have my men has to retreat? Am I alone here? In any event, I've got my pistol in my sound left hand so that I can defend myself to the death. According to our reports, American war surgery is like the French, very quick to amputate if cases look doubtful, and even more so where prisoners are concerned. I've cut my right sleeve and seen a huge entry wound just above the elbow. Can only hope there's not too much damage done. Then I hear men speaking. I can tell they are our men. Then I recognize the voice of Oberfeldwebel Wrench. I call out to them and they get me out of the hole, since I couldn't have done it without help. Wrench is continuing to advance, so I don't want to be in his way. My Batman brings me back to the field dressing station and informs the commander. Eventually the Hauptmann appears with Oberleutnant Ulmer, tells me I'll be back in 5 days and gives me cigarettes. This time he'll surely be awarding me the German Cross in gold. Wonder what he'd think if he knew that I don't care about medals anymore. Next, I'm taken to the casualty clearing station, where the doctors are mainly from the SS. Reserve troops are leaving for the front, but for me personally, there'll be no more fighting for some time. I have my first operation in St. Martin, then travel as far as Rennes to the base hospital. After another operation, I'm sent to Le Mans 3 weeks later, and finally to the base hospital in Paris, an excellent modern hospital. Apart from my Stuka, my outstretched arm, there is nothing wrong with me, so I begin to flirt enthusiastically with an attractive French nurse. She is really nice, but unfortunately no more than nice. In the hospital we hear about the attempt to assassinate the Führer. Although there are SS officers here as well, we all discuss things quite openly. They are frontline soldiers the same as us, not the black SS or the golden pheasants, which is what we call the party bigwigs who run around behind the lines. Even the SS men reckon that if we manage to win the war, the party will have to be dealt with afterwards. Most of them don't agree with the assassination attempt, but the prevailing opinion is that the generals are at fault for relinquishing their famed leadership qualities to the so-called greatest military leader of all time. How did the poor buggers at the front and the exhausted civilian population at home deserve to be led so badly? We have many anxious questions about the future and our prospects in this long war. Even the most confident among us have doubts. And now the German greeting, the Nazi salute, has been introduced to replace the traditional military salute. It has been made quite clear to everyone who is in charge. No, the wounded are most definitely not happy. Soon I'm travelling home to Germany on the hospital train, to bombed, exhausted, battered Germany. Over emergency bridges, through ruined towns, constantly being stopped by air raids and track repairs. No cheerful waves like there were 2 years ago. Just an almost mechanical and resigned lift of the arm as we pass. It makes us thoroughly depressed. I spend a few days in Kulmbach Military Hospital and am then transferred as an ambulant to the Luftwaffe Hospital in Munich. Here, as a representative of my regiment, I am awarded the Close Combat Clasp in silver and the Wound Badge in silver. Frankly, I could just as easily have done without them, and in any case, the only decoration I wear on my uniform is my Iron Cross First Class. But I'm home again, and for a few weeks at least that's the most important thing. My parents, my sister and friends all mollycoddle me enormously. But my fiancée in Magdeburg can't get permission to travel. War work is the reason. Painful, but understandable. Kurt Schlegel, a friend of my old pal Friedel Uberrieder, who was to become my old good friend, got married during these weeks, and we travelled to Chiemsee to celebrate. Wedding night in Hustober. Something to be glad about at any rate. From our Munich suburb of Otterbrunn, about 12 kilometers away from the Marienplatz in the city centre as the crow flies, we can see the bomber formations dropping their cargo of fire and death over Munich in the blazing sunshine. It's a damned shame. We leave each other depressed, thinking not just of those poor people there, but everywhere. Almost every night, and now by day as well, hurrying to the bunkers with a few personal belongings, suffering the terrible explosions, the infernal noise all around, the trembling, waiting for death at any moment. Aren't the old men, the women and children the real heroes? And they can't even open their mouths to cry out in fear, in case the air raid warden is still a committed Nazi who might report them. No, it's better by far to be out there, back at the front. Retreat in the West, 1944. My regimental commander, Oberstleutnant von der Heiter, wrote to me on the 3rd of September 1944. After your discharge from the military hospital, you are assigned once again to 6th Parachute Regiment. I am happy to be able to give you this information and hope that you will soon be recovered. I also ask you to inform me when your recovery can be expected. All the men are glad to know that you will be leading them again and are waiting impatiently for your return. I greet you in old comradeship. None of the entreaties of my fiancée, my parents, brothers and sisters, friends had any effect. My arm was still in a sling, but I had to get back to the front, to my dearly won 12 Company. I couldn't bear to sit around listening to any more defeatist speeches, although I was slowly but surely being affected by them as well, when I knew what my comrades were going through. I had to get back to the regiment. At first I travelled to Aschersleben or Oschersleben. I'm not sure which because I haven't any notes. Either I no longer had the desire to write them, or more likely these last months had just been too hectic. I vaguely remember one time in the mess when the garrison commander, an Oberst who was a veteran of the First World War, mentioned that he had recently been at the Führer's headquarters and that a miracle weapon was going to be introduced soon. I couldn't stop myself commenting that the situation at the front was so appalling because of the shortage of vehicles and heavy artillery, and particularly because of the absence of any kind of air support. If we had these, we wouldn't need any miracle weapons. This wasn't just my own opinion. It was shared by other line officers. However, I soon found out that I was being accused of defeatist attitudes because of it.